If you don't mind, Barbara, I'd love for
Yeah.
you just to take me back to the beginning with your mother. What was the first sign that something was wrong?
Well, I guess it happened maybe 9 years before she died. And we just thought that she had old people's disease, which is to become more forgetful about her keys, her names, could grovel with things. But I found out that she was diagnosed very shortly after that, 2 years later, with Alzheimer's. And once she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I felt I knew what to expect because her mother had Alzheimer's and she lived with us when we were being raised. So I knew all the signs and where it would track. But the difference between my grandmother and my mother was it tracked very differently. My mother went in short order from a very like a love bug who had love and kindness for everyone, very organized, could accomplish anything. She was a real powerhouse. She went from that to a person we just couldn't even recognize. And it happened gradually. She started crying a lot. She had irritability all the time, restlessness. She wandered, she was shouting, and we were like, who is this lady? This is a strange kind of Alzheimer's, but we never reported her to the doctor and said, is there something else going on here? And there really was something going on. I wish I had known that there's a separate but related condition called agitation in Alzheimer's dementia. And the signs of it or the symptoms of it are very different, and my mother tracked that way. So I would really like to get the word out to as many people who just don't even think it's something strange about that. I've learned that half the people who have Alzheimer's show signs of this illness or condition, and that's very important for people to know because they could change their caregiving ability for the people they love.
What did it feel like for you as her daughter to find out that it was Alzheimer's?
When it was Alzheimer, it felt like a death warrant, a long march to nothingness with not any hope at all. With Alzheimer's, what's terrible is there is no cure for it. So you just have to wait it out and stay the course and see it diminish the individual you love. It's like I would say like a slow death, really a slow death of personality and of the physicality of the person. It was so sad. I fortunately had 9 brothers and sisters, and we divvied up the responsibilities of, excuse me, visiting her, taking care of her. And so that made a heck of a difference. But most people go it alone. I think today it's very important for people to know you don't even have to go it alone because there are so many support groups that you could join that give you support along the way. And there's a wonderful website called recognizealzheimersagitation.com that is chock full of information that's very helpful to anyone who wants to do a better job loving the person they're caring for.
What would be your biggest piece of advice to others who may have been like yourself, juggling a very busy professional career and also have this going on at home as well? What would be your biggest piece of advice to them?
I wish I could give you better advice, but I would just say going into it, you have to expect the longevity of the illness and not really have any reason to hope and be okay with that. I'm really an optimistic person. I could run a mile if I see a little ray of sunshine, but I couldn't find that sunshine in anything. The part that made a difference in those last 6 years when I was with my mother and also made a difference to my siblings was we got to live in her world. The minute we stopped correcting her and saying, Mom, there is no snake under your bed. Mom, Daddy died 7 years ago. Mom, I just told you that. The minute we stopped that, because it takes a lot of patience, and instead we agreed with everything, we jumped over into her world in every way we could. We started enjoying the time and the little she had to give in the time that she was with us. I think that's a very important realization for people living with someone with Alzheimer's, to never expect them to come into your space again. They never will. They're not able to. And they have feelings. You know, if you criticize someone with dementia, they feel badly, they feel ashamed, they still have emotions. And so to care for their emotions, the best thing to do is to care for the way they see life, which is kind of crazy at times, but to agree with them and play along with the way they're seeing life.
The last question I have for you, Barbara, this morning is just what support do you think we as a society and as a country can give to other caregivers to make them feel heard and to your point that they are not going through this alone?
I don't think the government does all that much to support them, but I know there's a grassroots movement very much underway where people give caregivers relief, go out to the hairdresser, go for a walk, like a babysitting service. It's now recognized as an illness that they need relief from. So I believe there's a subtle change happening and giving people more support, but I don't think you could look to the government for doing that. I think it's an individual act of kindness.